Growing up, I could always be a troublemaker. I did what I wanted, and if you didn't like it, no problem. But don't get in my way. I didn't set out to upset people, but sometimes I did, and usually I didn't take it personally when they got frustrated at me. For instance, take my wife, who at that moment was standing in front of me, yelling her head off while figurative steam blew out of her ears. The reason? She was accusing me of being unfaithful to her. Lori was a stunning 25-year-old blonde bombshell. She had long, gorgeous legs and a stomach that was washboard smooth. The only change to her appearance was the cosmetic enhancements that she got the previous year, not long after we got married. I, for one, loved her natural look, but she wanted to be larger, so over a couple of months she worked on me and eventually got her way. They were nicely shaped now, but she wasn't as sensitive as she once was. She was also pretty much traditional in private and didn't like to try new things. Lori and I met when I did a job for her father. He was a master builder, and I was wet behind the ears having just gotten my builder's license. Lori and I met, fell in love, and married. Bert enjoyed the fact that his little girl fell in love with a fellow chippy, and we were headed towards a big house, kids, and what should have been marital bliss. Ha, not really. As I mentioned, my wife was yelling at me, harsh words pouring out of her pretty lips as she punctuated every third word with cheater, and how could you, and every other sobbing comment that a wife uses when she finds out her husband has been seeing someone else. The fact that I wasn't too disturbed by her accusations incensed her even more. "Lori," I asked her when she was almost hyperventilating and pausing to take in more breath to continue berating me. "What makes you think I am being unfaithful to you? Did you see me with someone else?" I was calm compared to my wife, and when I raised my eyebrow in challenge and gave her a smirk, she went a bright shade of pink. "As I told you, I can be a jerk." While gasping for air due to her crimson appearance, she opened her phone and thrust it out at me. The phone had a picture on the screen. The picture was me at lunch with a woman that wasn't my wife. The growing smirk on my face was still challenging and continuing to upset her. I quickly took in everything on her phone screen and noted that it was an SMS from one of her friends, not something she had taken. "And?" I retorted in reply to the photo. "That is Jill, and we were having lunch." "Forget you, Tony," my wife spat at me. She flicked the screen, and the next picture showed me kissing Jill in more than a friendly fashion. "All right, I'll admit that pic could be taken the wrong way, but would you believe me if I told you?" I paused for effect and raised an eyebrow to match the smug grin on my face. "It's not what it looks like." Lori's eyes bulged at my comment, and she went from crimson to almost purple before she went deathly silent. She skimmed another picture, thrusting her arm out towards me, saying nothing. This time it showed Jill and I holding hands as we walked towards the elevator of the hotel where we were having lunch. I noted the picture was dated a different day. "Yeah, okay. That one is even more suggestive. But what do you think happened?" I asked. "Well," she said, menace dripping from every word, "I don't think you were doing your taxes up there." I laughed. "No, you're right. We weren't doing our taxes, but there is more to it than that." "Tony," Lori said, angrier than I had ever seen her. "What were you doing with her? Are you involved with her?" There it was, the direct question. No inference, no beating around the bush. A straight-up question. "There was very little sleeping, but we were certainly in the same bed," I replied, smiling proudly at my wife. "Then how the heck?" My wife started, then paused before taking several deep breaths. I waited. I think I knew how this was going to go. "How do you think being unfaithful to me is all right?" she asked me, barely keeping herself under control. "Tony, you're my husband, and I find it hard to believe that you could betray me with her." "What do you mean, her?" I said, acting a little indignant. "Tony, infidelity aside, look at her. She's a plain woman, even a little chubby. I mean, look at her figure." "Hey," I replied, instantly offended. "She's got a great figure for a mum of 2 kids." "She's a mum," Lori said, shocked. She's married? Yeah, married for around 8 years, I said, as I leaned back in my chair and picked up the beer I was drinking before my wife came in and started yelling at me. How could you? How could she? She stammered. Let me look at that photo again, I asked. It caught her off guard, but she pushed her arm out again. Sorry, but that's not Jill, I told my wife. That is actually Daisy. She's Jill's twin sister. You can tell as Daisy's hair is cut shorter in the back than Jill's. The goldfish look that Lori was giving me told me she had no words. While she balked, I picked up my own phone and unlocked my private store before scrolling through a few pictures and turning it to show Lori both sisters kneeling on the hotel bed in some very flattering attire. Both of them looked utterly stunning, and I smiled at the thought of what I had done with them later that same afternoon. Lori collapsed in a chair, tears now streaming down her face. Just how many women are you being unfaithful with? She asked me. 5, I told her immediately. Her eyes snapped to me a microsecond later, not believing that I had admitted it right away. 5, she said, repeating the number. Tony, how could you? You're my husband. For a moment, I said nothing as I contemplated my devastated wife. I took the final sip of my beer and stood. I'm going to get another drink. Would you like one? Lori said nothing as I shrugged and walked 5 steps to the fridge, retrieved 2 beers, and came back to the table, setting one in front of her before retaking my seat. Lori said nothing as she just stared at me. I sighed. Time to tell a story. It all started about 8 months ago, I told her. If you recall, I was feeling unwell and was really out of sorts. Lori nodded, but her pained eyes never left mine. Even your dad noticed I was not well, but being a typical bloke, I was just trying to power through it. I drank a ton of water and tried to sweat out whatever was in my system. It was perhaps 2 weeks after feeling off that I met Jill. I cocked my head to the side, wondering what her reaction would be. Lori did nothing but look at me, giving me the ultimate betrayed look. I had already admitted that I was being unfaithful to her with twin married sisters, so right now I was lower than dirt in her mind. I continued. Jill approached me at a food truck while I was getting smoko, Australian morning tea, and asked me to meet her for lunch later in the day. I was intrigued, so I said sure. Later, when we sat down, she had a story to tell me. I took a quick swig of my new beer and looked at Lori, waiting to see if she would speak to me. What type of story could be so amazing that you would betray your wife with her, and heck, her sister as well? Lori asked in a very snarky tone. That is a really good question, I replied, tipping the neck of my beer towards my wife in acknowledgement, then took a second pull on my beer and gave her a winning smile before looking back at the bottle of beer in my hand. Great Northern, not a bad beer, I mused for a moment. Taking a breath, I once again cast my gaze on my distraught wife, narrowing my eyes, which took Lori aback just a little. What Jill told me is that she found out her husband of 8 years, along with her sister's husband and 3 other husbands in their group of friends, had been unfaithful to their wives for quite some time. So, Lori spat, trying to maintain her aggressive stance. Just because they're feeling betrayed gives them the rights to steal my husband and make him betray me? Well, yeah, kind of. Kind of, Lori replied, standing up, her voice rising again. Kind of, Tony. We're married. Doesn't that mean something to you? I nodded. Of course it did. Lori sat back down, her voice now a lot quieter. What do you mean it did? Ah, so she caught that. Well, I explained. Jill had pictures with her, videos on her phone, where the 5 wives banded together to get a PI to follow their husbands. What the PI found was interesting. The red glow on my wife's face was dissipating rapidly, retreating into a suddenly pale color. What the PI found was built around observation over a 6-week period, I told her in a deadpan tone. The 5 men were meeting twice a week at a questionable hotel on the outskirts of town where they would all be with one woman. I eyed my wife as I used the euphemism. She was now struggling to meet my eyes. Yeah, I kept on explaining. Apparently, they had been doing this for about 5 years, a year longer than before we met. Tony, Lori started to say, and I held up my hand. Let me finish, I told her. I will admit that I was shocked. I mean, they had been unfaithful to their wives for all this time, and they all had kids. What was worse from the report is the woman they were with was also absolutely down with it. She had to be since she was married herself. I mean, the pictures and the video were crystal clear as to what was happening and how they continually disparaged their spouses. Lori's eyes were now watering. I took yet another drink of my beer, which was now 2/3 gone, before continuing. So now, there I was, sitting at lunch with Jill, as she explained how the woman I loved had never been faithful to me while I was giving her everything I had. Anger, pain, anguish, and unworthiness were some of the emotions I had almost immediately. I mean, heavens, I thought we were going to have children together. But the woman I loved had knowingly and passionately enjoyed making me an unwitting victim for our entire relationship. I slammed my hand down on the table, making both bottles of beer jump as well as my wife. And I found out that my loving wife had given me an infection, which is why I felt like rubbish, I spat, now letting the anger into my voice that I had been holding for the past few months. I sighed, then picked up the beer bottle, finished it, and started peeling the label. Jill took me to a clinic, apparently. She had picked up something as well from her husband's escapades and sought treatment. This was how all of them figured out about their husband's unfaithfulness. Someone had obviously gone outside their little gathering and given us all a gift. I eyed Lori, but she gave nothing away. No idea if it was her. At the clinic, I got a shot, some drugs, and struggled for about a week. I was sliding into a pretty big depression while trying to figure out if I confront you or just walk away. I wasn't sure what to make of my wife's look right then as I gave her my revelation. She looked devastated, but I wasn't sure if it was because I was being unfaithful to her, that she found out I knew about her being unfaithful to me, or that I had picked up an infection from her involvement. At that moment, the lamp over the table was spreading a harsh yellow light, like an old-school movie interrogation. But it suited my mood as I explained everything to Lori as I continued peeling the label away from the beer bottle. A couple of weeks later, I was leaning towards just walking away when Jill asked me to meet with her again. Some snippet of the way I said it must have alerted her. As Lori looked at me, some of her initial anger returned to the corner of her eyes. I ignored it as I kept explaining, toying with the edge of the label on the beer bottle as it lifted from the glass. I ended up meeting with Jill, Daisy, and the 3 other women that were the wives of the men you were being unfaithful to me with. So you got together with them to get even with me, is that it? Lori spat angrily. I shrugged. I almost didn't if you want to know the truth, but as we commiserated over a few drinks about our unfaithful spouses, the 5 of them convinced me otherwise. Lori wanted to say something, but at the last moment choked back whatever it was. I grinned at her. I had an idea what she was thinking. Magnificent, I said. What? She replied. You were going to ask how it was. How was it being with 5 other women that were not my wife? I told her. The answer, each of them was amazing. Seriously, you could take lessons from any one of them. There is no need to be so harsh, Lori said quietly, now looking dejected. I just continued to smile, knowing I was now being inconsiderate. I'm not being harsh, Lori. I am just being real. You betrayed me for the entire time we have been together with those 5 men. Their wives found out and then offered me comfort in their arms, with their companionship, and I have to say, they all know how to make a man feel appreciated. So I have no idea why their husbands would stray for someone that acts more like a mannequin in the relationship. Sure, they don't have a trim figure like yours, but their curves are amazing to caress. They have bellies from childbirth and scars that they are embarrassed about, unlike your perfect gym rat waist. But they love it when I kiss their tummies and tell them how beautiful they are. Their physical attributes vary in size and all show signs of motherhood, but they are natural and responsive, and I can make them happy just by showing affection, unlike with your enhancements now. Their faces have lines from worrying about kids, but they all treat me like I am the only one they want, not their husbands, who have, like you, been being unfaithful to them for years. One-on-one, each one of these ladies leaves you in the dust as a partner. Each of them is more passionate, more vocal, and give as much as they get in a relationship. But Lori, goodness me, together they are all incredible. Together? Her eyes bulged again. Yes, together. What you thought? I shook my head. They were aware of your gatherings with their husbands. Again, the pictures and video they have are very clear about what you were doing and what you all thought about us. I did learn a few things, though, I continued before she could say anything in reply. I learned that those women did not have the aversion to supporting each other that your guys do. Jill and Daisy won't interact that way, but they had no issues helping me care for any of the others. Seriously, spending time with a hot mom while also caring for another woman. Gosh, Lori, it has been some of the most satisfying experiences of my life. I finished peeling the label off my beer bottle and once again looked at my wife. She was absolutely destroyed. I could see it all rolling over her features like waves on the beach. Anger, guilt, envy, fear, disappointment, and worry. "So what now?" she asked quietly. "We divorce," I said simply. Overall, aside from requiring time, our separation was simple. Lori did try to talk with me about reconciliation a few times, but I always said no. Her betrayal was too callous, too wounding. From what I understand, she is no longer seeing her companions either. The drama hit its peak within 24 hours of my chat with Lori. Each of them blamed each other, and of course Lori. Lori's father, my boss, was disappointed in his daughter, and when it came out what I did, was also a little disappointed in me, even as he acknowledged privately the decent man in him was envious of my revenge relationships with 5 women, admitting he understood why I did what I did, but he had to support his daughter. However, he was a good man, and he helped me line up work with one of his mates, wished me well, and we parted ways. And of course, you're wanting to know if I am still seeing 5 women. Easy answer, no. We took a hiatus for a couple of months when everything first blew up, then we did spend about 6 months spending time together a few times a week while all of our divorces went through. I don't think I spent time alone once during that entire time, sometimes 1 or 2 with me, sometimes more. But all good things come to an end, and one day I was round at Jill's with all the ladies and their kids. We were doing nothing but hanging out. I was helping the kids build a pillow fort while the mums were preparing lunch when Tracy showed up. She was the younger sister of Jill and Daisy. But one look at her and I was smitten, and everyone, kids included, knew it. For the rest of the afternoon, I was polite but stealing glances at her any time I thought I could get away with it. Tracy, for her part, was blushing and stealing her own chanced looks. It was perhaps 2 weeks later that Tracy and I started to formally date. She knew I had been spending time with her sisters as well as the other 3 women for revenge. She was apprehensive, but we had the talk, and Tracy insisted that any relationship between us was exclusive, fidelity paramount. After I agreed with no hesitation, she also spoke with the others about it, and aside from losing a companion, they were okay with giving me up so that Tracy and I had a chance. Our first time together, I think Tracy was trying to compete with her sisters. The next day, when Jill and Daisy saw me, they howled in laughter, commenting that I looked like a worn-out husk, while grinning and congratulating Tracy on picking up one heck of a man. These days, almost 3.5 years later, I still get overly affectionate hugs from my sisters-in-law or any of the other 3 women when we see them, but we never cross a line past a little innocent flirting. Tracy is pregnant with our second right now. Our daughter is her spitting image, and Auntie Jill and Auntie Daisy dote on my little Betsy like only a close family could. One evening, All three women came waltzing in the house, a whirlwind of shopping bags, baby things, and just general noise, of course. 6 children between them, including my daughter, didn't help the volume. I kissed my wife and daughter as we all ushered the kids into our lounge room for a movie. I then gave my sisters-in-law kisses on the cheek as they grinned at me. "What?" I said, looking at the Cheshire Cat grins they had on their faces. "Guess who we saw today?" Daisy proudly said. I looked at Tracy, and she was blushing. "Ryan Reynolds," I said absently, knowing that Tracy had a crush on the actor. Then again, even I could admit he wasn't bad-looking, and I was a fan of Deadpool. "No, silly," Jill exclaimed in a friendly tone. "Laurie." "Really?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "And how is the old gal?" "I think she has seen better days," Daisy explained almost gleefully, as she unpacked several packets of pasta into our pantry. They both lived together with their kids in a house less than a block away, but our house, much newer and larger, was the center of the family, so they spent almost as much time here as they did at home. I grabbed a beer, sat at the kitchen table, the same one that I was sitting at when Laurie and I had our chat, and took a sip. "How so?" I asked. "She had too much fake gold bling on," Daisy told me. "And seriously, that really bad spray tan gone almost bright orange looks like garbage. Add to the fact she's lost a lot of weight and not in a good way. Those cosmetic enhancements now look really out of place on her frame. But then, when she realized who we were, she came striding across to us like a woman on a mission." I chuckled, as did the twins. However, Tracy looked upset. "So what happened?" I asked, drawing the phrase out. Jill and Daisy smiled. "Well," Jill told me, taking over the story, "she storms over and puts her hands on her hips and thrusts her chest out, and ignoring the fact of the kids with us, says, 'So are you two still seeing my husband?'" I laughed while Tracy blushed. "What did you do?" I pointedly asked my wife, as she went a deeper shade of red as her 2 older sisters laughed louder. Jill swallowed her laughter after a moment, then explained. "My little sister calmly stood, looked over at the kids who were too busy eating their happy meals to notice anything, and then she stares Laurie in the eyes and states, 'Your husband? Sorry, miss, but that's now my job as Tony's wife.' Your ex just looked at Tracy for a few moments, then must have figured out we were related." "You mean he's with 3 sisters?" Daisy explained, doing a bad imitation of Laurie's voice. But in the next moment, my little sister surprised all of us by sending a loud, resounding crack through the entire eatery. In a single move, she slapped the daylights out of Laurie, sending her sprawling to the ground. Daisy grinned at Tracy. "Seriously, 10 points, sis. You did something Jill and I have wanted to do for years." My wife blushed deeper as the surprise showed on my face. Of course, she knew all about the end of my marriage with Laurie, but has always told me that if she ever saw Laurie, she would just walk the other way. "I couldn't help it," Tracy said, joining the conversation at last. "When she came over and I heard the bragging about you being her husband, I got upset. When she accused you of seeing all 3 of us, I kind of lost it. I mean, I know your history with Jill and Daisy, but seriously, you're mine, Tony, no one else's." I grinned at her and gave her a wink, letting her know it was all right. She gave me a coy smile in return as I opened my arms, and she slid into the place she belonged. I felt horrible. Never have I felt so angry and upset. But I helped her to her feet, Tracy explained. Then I thanked her for betraying you and releasing you to be with me. Her confidence was shattered. Her hand was on her cheek where I slapped her. But then she noticed my wedding ring and that I was pregnant, and she sank back down, crying. "It was hilarious," Daisy said, smiling. "She came over wanting to start something, and then I think when she saw Tracy's condition along with the new handprint, she finally understood what she had done and lost." I looked at all 3 sisters. Daisy was smiling, and Jill was making movements with her mouth caught between happy and trying not to laugh too much. But Tracy looked a little mournful. "I think I feel sorry for her," my wife told us. "I mean, she had you and gave you away. From what I understand, there was no love in her affairs with those men, just physical connection. But she lost you and we got you. She then bent her head up and my lips descended to meet hers, while her sisters giggled and clucked as I ran my hands over her pregnant belly. Don't feel sorry for her, I told Tracy. She chose her path. That she is still upset about it is not our problem. Tracy sighed. I know. For the rest of the evening, we talked about Lori and the past. Tracy was a little morose, while her sisters were happy at Lori's downfall since she caused their own marriages to implode. But they were happy. Jill was getting serious with a guy from her work, while Daisy had been dating a friend of mine for the past 18 months. I kept rubbing my wife's pregnant belly and letting her know it was all right for her to feel a little bad for Lori. But to not forget that my ex's mistake was her fortune. Me? I felt like the luckiest man in the world. I had a wonderful wife and daughter, a second child on the way, a son, though we hadn't told anyone, and of course, some lovely sisters-in-law that had my back anytime I needed it. My ex, I had learned, was a shadow of her former self, having ended up with several infections that affected her health following our divorce. Now she could not find the intimacy she once had with me, as anyone worth a darn saw her as the worn-out, broken person she was, which did make me smile. Yep, I can still be a bit of a troublemaker. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.